So we're back as we are every week around the same time. We're here to talk about The Bad Batch, which is a Star Wars show which we both love. I'm joined by Shayla Brown as I am every week. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I mean, I know this episode's going to be, I think, well, I was thinking about it, right? And I'm like, let's just do our MVP now and let's get it out of the way because, like, we're going to have the
It's gonna be
same
the same.
person.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be the same.
So we're agreeing it's Ventress, right?
It's obviously a Sash
Oh,
Ventress. I mean,
okay,
hello?
good. I was like, we don't have to do this. It's kind of pointless because if we do it and it's somebody else, then clearly we didn't watch the episode, right? So I was like, we might as well get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to start off with something. I want to know what your take on this is. I think this is the worst episode we've had of the Bad Batch.
Really?
Yes, and I know you want to like hang up the call right now. I understand that, but I want you to hear me out, okay? This show gave us insight into what a Bad Batch could have looked like if Ventress and Omega were the two leads, and none of the other people were there. And all I want now is I want the show where Ventress and Omega are like training together. I don't care about the rest of them anymore. So I'm angry because they gave you this look at the show, which is so much better and more exciting, and I don't get that.
Well, we don't know that yet. She might leave the batch and do a spin-off with Ventress at the end.
Yeah, but I like now. Like, why did I watch all the Bad Batch for so long when I could have just seen this better show, which looks a lot better? So, I mean, that's my opinion on it. I don't know. What did you think about the show?
I really enjoyed the dynamic between those two.
Oh yeah, it's
I was
great.
I was not expecting to enjoy it so much, but it was great.
So
Just her in general.
okay, so there's this one moment which I laughed and I was like, this is awesome. This is pure like everything, right? And it was this moment. I don't remember this is they're on the I think they're on the boat, and Ventress is like, "Why are you always smiling? Or why are you so happy about this? Whatever, right?"
Mhm.
That was one of the best moments I think in this show. Like of all the seasons, I think that was one of the best moments.
Yeah, she calls her strange. She's like, "You're a
Yeah,
strange little clone." It's like, and Omega's just like, "Thanks." It's like
and
that's
at the
so Omega.
even at the end, like she's like, she's like that was fun, and you see the way Ventress looks, and it's like, I don't know about that one. Like, what are you doing? This is weird, and I love that. That was awesome.
Yeah, they were fun.
So I don't know. Do we want to talk more about Ventress? Let's talk more about Ventress. So
Sure.
she kind of comes into this, and it's a little weird because they kind of figure out who she is, but they don't really reintroduce her to the audience right away. And she's very different, I think, than she was in the Clone Wars. The last time we saw her for real, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Mhm. Mhm.
What did you think of her more introspective character? Like I've never seen a calm, kind of very almost Jedi-like Ventress.
I mean, I'm just coming off of having recently finished Dark Disciple, and
Mhm.
it felt like a very natural transition from Dark Disciple Ventress to presumably, resurrected Ventress or whatever. It felt very on track with her course and where she would have gone if she hadn't died. Which I really like. I really like this new side of Ventress that we're seeing. I really like the introspective side of her. It's really interesting.
So, just question: is Dark Disciple actually canon or is it not? Because
It is canon.
so they kept it canon. Okay,
Yes.
and because I think when we talked about it last time, I remember we were like, well, if she comes back to life, then like if she's just being alive, then Dark Disciple kind of doesn't work, right?
Hmm.
But then at the end of the episode, and this is what kind of made me like wonder about this, is because she's like, I've still got a few lives left. I think that implications that she was resurrected, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
So
god, who
I
is that? Sorry.
somewhat you're very popular. It's
I
all good.
don't
It's
know
all
who
good.
it is, but it's annoying me.
Yeah, you're very popular right now. See, everyone wants to talk to you.
Well, I don't want
Yet,
to talk to them.
well, that you should tell them that. But yeah, I think it was interesting because you know, the, Ventress, it seemed like she was very calm, and I mean, that's great and all, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like she lost a little edge too, which I didn't love.
Mhm.
Like I liked the edge she had. She showed it a little bit when she was taking down the Bad Batch, but like I don't know. I feel like there's no reason for her to be nice to Omega yet, and so I think she should have like given more of a. There should be more of a reason for that. I don't know.
I think it can be very like looking at it from the perspective of someone who had like if I hadn't read Dark Disciple, I think I would have felt very jarred to have seen her like this because it's a very drastic change. And I can track it in my mind and like understand where it's going. But like I feel like if you hadn't read that book, you might be very confused as to why she is suddenly a little bit more patient. But I felt like the way that she interacted with Omega felt like a very much like softened down version to how, you know, obviously she used to be a Sith. Um and like her bite was still
Yeah,
there, but it wasn't as hard. Um which I think is kind of, it kind of has to happen because you don't want to see her like the way comparison to the way that she was training her apprentice uh on Dathomir, the brothers.
yeah.
Maul's brother,
The
yeah.
Savage Opress or whatever his
Yeah,
name is.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a contrast to how they trained. Um,
Okay, so can I disagree with you a little bit? And the reason I say that is because like when I agree with the Dark Disciple thing, and I have read it. It was a long time ago when I read it, but like I understand what you're talking about. But I guess my thing is more when I see her return, right? I see it more kind of like how Darth Maul returns in Rebel.
mhm.
Okay, I don't know if I can be heard properly right now. My
I
mic
can
is.
I can hear you now.
Okay, there we go. Might be weird today. I don't know why. Um, basically, like it feels very much like she should be a little bit more like Maul kind of was being nice to Ezra because he had a plan, right? He knew what he's getting
Mhm,
into. It felt like Ventress didn't really fully know what she's getting into. And so I don't feel like there's any reason for her to implicitly trust Omega because she should be a little bit more cynical, right? Like Maul was stabbed in the back almost literally by the Empire, right?
mhm,
Like he was being nice to Ezra, but only as a means to kind of turn him on the rebel, like the rest of the team, right?
mhm.
And so it made sense. But with her, like there were points where it felt like, oh, is she gonna do the thing where she, kind of tries to turn Omega on them, kind of Maul like, right, and say, "Come with me instead." But she never does that, and I don't understand that. Like that's what I'm having trouble rationalizing, I guess.
I think it makes sense to me because like in Dark Disciple she did redeem herself. Um and she's become a new person and presumably emerging from that pool where she was buried. She, the metaphor of, Star Wars loves to do the thing of they have been reborn. It kind of feels
Yeah.
like that to me, which makes sense to me, but I understand if it doesn't to you.
But again, it's not like I guess what I'm trying to get at is more like she doesn't really know to any extent if Omega's actually a good guy, right? Like, or if the like she doesn't has no reason to know that a bounty hunter told her about them. Like, there's no reason for her to assume that they aren't going to double cross. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that assumption that she's almost quote unquote safe with them, um, it feels a little bit weird to me because I don't know. Like, she has no reason to trust them.
I guess. I just like I imagine that she can sense through the force people's honesty. Um and I feel like with Omega it's hard to kind of find any dishonesty in her because she's so good at heart.
I don't know, that was the thing because like it felt like it was too and I understand there's a certain time like show like runtime and whatever, but I felt like it was almost too easy for her to like again because like with Maul it made sense because Maul was playing to try to like get Ezra to leave them and join him, right? So it made sense why he was so instantly nice to them and why he was trying to like endear himself to them. But with Ventress again, with maybe it's because we don't know enough about her motivations. It felt a little bit weird. It was like some bounty hunter told you these people who are interested in some information, and yet you just suddenly start trusting them, assuming they're not gonna like, do anything. And maybe it's because she's so confident she can beat them. Maybe that's what it is. But I feel like
I mean,
was
it's
weird.
pretty clear that she can. She made
Right.
it
Well, that's the
clear.
thing. That's the thing. But maybe that's the reason. Maybe I'm
And like
nitpicking, but I just
the Batch didn't trust her, and she did trust the Batch.
she didn't trust the Batch, but she did trust Omega. And like again, we don't like again my thing. Like if I was her, would I know that Omega isn't like some plant for the Empire? I mean, I don't know, right? Like I'd be scarred definitely by the Empire, and I would not be just willing to trust somebody because they seem nice. You know what I mean?
I get what you mean, but I also think that she can see how, like, she even tells them, "You're doing a shit job at hiding. You aren't taking the proper precautions." And like, if she was a plant for the Empire, they would have, made it look a little bit more convincing. Whereas
What do you
these
mean?
guys,
Like they're not good at hiding? That's literally what a plant from the Empire would do, right? Hide in plain sight, basically.
Yeah, I mean, but like the Batch is like a rogue group of clones, and they've been asking in places where they shouldn't, and I feel like she can tell that they're struggling by the seat of their pants, and like it's clear that they're winging everything they do, and that they aren't as organized as the Empire would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen a lot of Star Wars and I've seen a lot of Empire tricks and I've seen a lot of like setups. And if I were Ventress, being someone who's just seen like all of Star Wars, I would have been very hesitant to walk into a seemingly, rogue group of, of clones who were trying to find out about M counts. I don't know. I would be like almost like I don't know if you remember this in Rebels, but the Rebels fell for this like idea that there was a Jedi. I don't remember exactly which Jedi. It was some Jedi master in captivity by the Empire, right? And they walked right into an imperial trap.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it was Luminara Unduli.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, and so again, it feels like all my Star Wars brain is saying, like, would be saying in that scenario, do not trust them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think. I'm kind of like, if you eventually kind of like walks in, she doesn't seem to have an issue. Like it's not like they even. I don't know. It felt a little weird, but I don't want to harp on this too much. But there's something I was kind of confused about because my own view watching Star Wars. I mean, I'm not going to trust these people. This seems too easy to be like, something.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
Now we do have to talk about the fact that she is still very, very powerful. So what did you think about the fact that it's very clear that the Bad Batch cannot defeat a Force user?
Oh, it was funny as hell. It's so great.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
It was
and
great. I love how the Batch constantly, like, this is the second time where a female bounty hunter has kicked their ass to the curb.
Well, we don't know if she's a bounty hunter.
I mean, former bounty hunter, but like same thing. Like, and she was in contact with Fennec, so we can assume. But like, her and Fennec have both kicked their asses, and it's beautiful.
The difference is she's a Force user, Fennec isn't. But
but it was like, oh, you guys are so cute that you think you can go up against Asajj Ventress and win. Like that was funny.
So I agree with you, but now I have a question for you, kind of overall about Star Wars, quickly, because this is the other little issue I had. Fennec poses an issue for the Bad Batch, right? Asajj Ventress obviously poses an issue for the Bad Batch, right? The Bad Batch also basically took down multiple Imperial bases by themselves. So I don't understand. Like, I understand we like making fun of the Empire for being incompetent, but are they really that incompetent and disorganized and chaotic that not only can they not find the Bad Batch, despite the fact that they have not been hiding well, but they can also be beaten by the Bad Batch literally every single time, but yet these random one-off people manage to destroy them and really put them in their place? Like, I don't understand that at all either.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Like, I mean, I don't understand the hierarchy of power. If the like, how's the Empire running the galaxy if literally the equivalent of a bounty hunter could destroy half the Empire by themselves?
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, you assume if the Bad Batch could beat them, then Fennec could probably do the same things.
Hmm.
So that was a little weird to me, but other than that, I mean, that was fine. Now, I don't know if I'm assuming you do want to talk about this part of this, but like, there's this moment where they're trying to figure out why they should trust Ventress, and Omega made a point, which I was saying in my head right before it happened, about why they should trust, or why Omega was willing to trust Ventress. And I don't know if do you remember what this point was?
She said, well, people do change, and Crosshair says, you're being naive, which he's told her before, you're being naive, and she fires back, well, I took a chance on you.
I think she said, I kept believing in you, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
And it was interesting because, she didn't say it like this, but I think what she meant really was, hey, everyone here told me give up on him. He's a lost cause. And I said, no, potentially, as some people on the internet said, stupidly, that's stupid for her not to be suspicious of Crosshair. But she said she wouldn't do it, right? Multiple people in that show told her not to do it, like to trust him, right? And yet she did, and it worked out, it seems like.
Yeah, she has good instincts when it comes to people.
Now, she also cannot use the Force for the life of her to any extent. What do you make of this?
Well, I'm still thinking that she is less. It is less about her having a high M count and more about her blood being compatible with M count and being able to transfer that without issue. Because Emery in the episode in like 3 is like, they were able to do a transfer without degradation to the specimen. And what I'm assuming is the specimen is, someone with a high M count, and they are trying to transfer those metachlorians into a specimen who does not have an M count. And for some reason, her blood is compatible with it. I don't know what that means, but I'm still going with that theory. I don't know how Force sensitive she actually is, and she doesn't have a natural aptitude for it.
So what I will say is this, and I've kind of been building this theory a little bit, and I think I feel a little more confident in it. I think I've kind of like said parts of it a few times, but this is what I think the situation is, and I'm interested to hear what you think about this. But so I think what happens is, I think she is very much, she has a high aptitude toward being a Jedi. Like, she has midichlorians. She can technically be a good Jedi based on the fact that she has, for a clone, a high M count, right? Which is, may not actually be that high, but like, comparatively to clones, she has one. And I think the problem for her right now is, and it's weird because like when you think about like the Phantom Menace, and you think Anakin, right? Anakin was an older Jedi, and we know that can happen sometimes where you're a little bit older and you become a Jedi. The difference was Anakin. We saw Anakin using the Force even though he didn't know he was using it, right? He could not use it when we first saw him, actively, but we saw him when he was flying up in the spaceship at the end to destroy the Trade Federation command ship, right? Or when he was pod racing even before that, right? That he could use the Force, right? He knew that, right? That's what made Qui-Gon kind of concerned, or at least wonder about, is he a Jedi, right? And he was a very gifted Jedi, high midichlorian count, right? For a person. Now, Omega can't seem to, for the most part, do anything with the Force, right? Like, she doesn't have that, like we saw even with Ezra, right? Ezra had this kind of aptitude for like connecting with living things, right? He could do that. We saw him do it multiple times, right? Omega doesn't have that. She does kind of, but not really to that same extent. Like, she can't really connect with nature. We know with Batcha a little bit she does, but she doesn't really, like with all those other whatever they're called, dog things, but like as Star Wars space aliens, right? She couldn't connect with any of the other ones, just that one. So I think there is the little bit of her not doing that. And so I think what happens is, she's not trained for it. She's too old. Like, I don't think she'll ever actually be able to be a Jedi. I think she'll end up being a Force healer, though, to some extent, right? Like I think she'll be able to learn how to use it to heal people.
Mhm.
I think that's what her thing is going to be, because that's kind of the thing missing from this team is like that quote unquote healer person,
Mhm.
right? Like if you think
Yeah.
of them as like a squad, right? You would assume there would be like a healer person, and she seems to fit that kind of like that nature. And then you look at someone like Emery, who we assume is related to her to some extent,
Mhm.
and that's kind of the role Emery plays, right? So I think that makes sense, and I've thought that's in season 1. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to basically do a blood transfusion to somebody who's not force sensitive, or trying to clone her again, because I think they accidentally made her force sensitive. I don't know how they did it, but they did it accidentally. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. So that's kind of my big theory thing. Because they want force sensitive clones, because that's awesome.
Yeah, I like that theory.
I don't know if you have anything else like kind of add on to that in terms or feedback on how it's wildly inaccurate.
No, there are so many theories regarding Omega, and I'm so curious to see how right or wrong we are.
Yeah, I don't know. What like do you have and again, you remember the Bad Batch better than I do. Like have you like is there anything where you'd say that's her using the force right there? You know, like those moments again, Anakin pod racing, Ezra talking to any animal.
I think for me, I could say that sometimes she has these moments of like seeming to know someone else's emotional process and being able to voice it. And we see it in Obi-Wan Kenobi with Leia as well, who like she'll look at someone and she'll go, "You're scared," and she'll go, "You're scared because of this," and blah blah blah. She knows exactly their emotional process, and that's like a force insight moment. And that's how the force kind of like manifested in Leia. And I kind of see the same thing in Omega when she's talking to people and like, for example, Crosshair in season 1, she's like, "I know what you're about to do, but please don't do it. And I know that it's not your fault." And like, she has these very profound, perceptive, emotional insights that, to me, like, it could be just like, I'm good at emotional intelligence, or it could be the Force giving her insights on people's emotions.
Or a little bit of both.
Yeah, or both. Yeah.
She's also it's interesting, and I don't know if you know, she's a very chaotic person. You know, like she kind of like these people who are very scatterbrained, who like will forget things that they should remember, whatever. She feels like she's that kind of person, and I don't know if that person is ever being like that kind of personality is ever being conducive to being a Jedi, where you're very scatterbrained and you're like and she feels like she's a very distractible person, maybe in part because she's a child, but also like in a way which I think we never saw. I don't think we've seen with anyone, even Anakin, who I would argue is probably the furthest from a prototypical Jedi. Like I don't think we ever saw someone this distracted and basically unable to focus no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I think is going to hurt her, obviously, long term, because I don't think she like I think even Anakin, even Ezra, who are big scatterbrained kind of older Jedi people, we never saw this from them, right? Like they were able to, even if took time, right, to focus, but they also were trained so long.
Mm-hmm.
The other weird thing about this, and I don't love it necessarily unless they do a spin-off show with Omega, is like Omega's got trained for about 5 minutes over the course of one episode of a 3-season show, right? Like I feel like you're kind of doing a disservice to her as well, because like with again, and we talked about this last time, right? We talked about the main characters from well, obviously Ahsoka from Clone Wars and Ezra from Rebels. They got trained consistently, right? And we saw them grow. With Omega, it's a little bit weirder because we never actually saw that. Like the first time anyone ever considered her to be a Jedi was at the beginning of season 3.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do you think we're gonna get a spin-off show for this? Like with, I mean, depends on what happens to Omega, but like with Ventress and Omega or something.
I hope so. I think we're
There's a
definitely
little bit of a hint.
We definitely haven't seen the last of Ventress, because her voice actor has said this is just the beginning, and the writers have said, the writers of Bad Batch have said, like, you're not gonna find out everything about her and how she survived in this show, but you will find that out somewhere else.
Okay, so a question for you. If you were in charge of Star Wars, would you do a live action Ventress Omega show, or would you do an animated one?
I mean, I'm so attached to the animated versions of the characters that it'd be hard to see anyone else portraying them in live action.
I mean, they've done a great job with some characters, and they've done an okay job with other characters. So it's a little bit hit or miss with that. I mean, they like because they do like to do those live action kind of versions of shows, continuations. Obviously, they did with Rebels with Ahsoka, right? I don't know, because the other thing with live action, it means there's a chance they could end up in a movie, and I would love to see Omega live action in a movie. So, selfishly, I think live action would be amazing for that purpose. I don't know. What do you think? Like, would you choose animated?
Maybe, because just I'm so used to the pacing of the animated that I like you would obviously things have to change and pacing has to change for live action, and what would that look like?
Yeah. I mean, and like I'm thinking about this, I'm like, you could have Fennec in the show, like if we were kind of making, and we don't know how this is going to end, but like, and we don't know who's gonna be alive, but like, let's say again, I don't want this to happen. I also kind of do want it to happen, but like, let's say a lot of the Bad Batch end up getting killed at the end of the season, right? And she kind of like almost because of that has to flee the Empire because also they're not going to beat the Empire like over the course of the show, and she kind of flees and she goes to find Ventress, right? And they kind of do this show where, almost, I mean, I don't want to use this example because it's not the best example, but like they kind of do something Boba Fett like, but like maybe a little bit better and a little more focused, right? And they kind of have Ventress training her, and you can develop whatever because there's clearly a relationship between Ventress and what's her face, Fennec, right? And you can kind of develop that relationship more. You can kind of do the flashback type things that you saw with Boba Fett, right? Mainly being how he survived. And you can do that with that's what I'm thinking. Like that would kind of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
And the only weird things like budgeting and if you lose enough on the budget, are you able to make an effective show?
Yeah.
Because we've seen again with some Star Wars things, they kind of skimp on the budget, but they also did a great job with Thrawn with Ahsoka. So like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like they could do some people like Ventress could look really bad live action or really good. It depends on how much they're willing to do in terms of like makeup and stuff, because obviously Ventress needs to be like, there's a lot of prosthetics and stuff involved in that. So the actor also actress has to be willing to sit through that, which I'm sure is not going to be fun for anyone.
Yeah.
Because that's probably a nightmare, especially if you just shave your head and do all that other stuff for the character. So, yeah, I don't know. Now, what do you think they're going to do next? They're kind of out of moves.
I haven't thought that far. I don't know where we're going.
Like, I think
the Empire's coming to Pabu.
Really?
I think we're going to get invaded. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the thing. And I know why you're saying this because of what Ventress said. But like about how they're not really safe, but like they've been there for a while and they haven't been caught, right? Like if the Empire was coming, I would assume they would have already come.
The reason why I think that is because there's a shot in the trailer of the clone assassins on Pabu, and
I think they'll get there eventually.
And that, like, I'm just thinking, like, that clone assassin that we saw at the end of, like, 7 or 8, who was still alive somehow, I think he's going to be desperately wanting to track them down. And, it might take him a while, because, like, we saw he was alive, but he got pretty fucked up. But I think he's gonna find them.
So the one thing is, and it's like, so if we count episodes since they were last found by the Empire, it's been 3 episodes, I believe, right? Because Fennec was last week's, this week's episode, and the week before was the entire episode off the planet.
It was the double episode feature.
Was the second episode fully off the planet?
Off Pabu?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was, right? Or at least most of it was.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, that's what the weird thing is. Like, the Empire hasn't found them in a while. Like, I don't know if they're going to just suddenly, I mean, because something would have to happen, right, for the Empire to find them. Or there's even the assassin to find them. That's what I'm trying to understand. And like, I think they're gonna do something stupid.
Probably.
And I think what they're gonna do is I don't think the Empire is gonna find them right away. I think they're gonna go try to find the Empire.
I wouldn't be surprised. This batch makes terrible plans.
Because like think about it. If they right now they're sitting, they're kind of like they have no moves right now. Because they don't know what to do, right? The only thing that makes sense is they try to infiltrate a base somewhere. Maybe they escape, and that kind of tips the Empire off to their thing.
Mhm.
Or alternatively, I mean, Ventress said you're not like she didn't say the Empire was gonna come find them necessarily. She just said people can find you, right? Like she's very vague about who. Maybe there's somebody else here who we're not thinking of as like potentially a factor in this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like it's weird because like normally I have a very good idea. And we know like because we've been pretty accurate about everything we've kind of seen happen. Like even the introduction of Ventress we kind of predicted. So I mean, I don't like it's weird because like they didn't give us anything. And I don't like that because they can't speculate about what's gonna happen because they don't have any moves. Like they're kind of just stuck. Like they can try to find the Empire or the Empire can find them.
Mhm.
Now, what do you want to happen over the last few episodes?
I don't even know at this point. I don't know where we're going, so I don't know how to track that in my brain. But
Now,
what
if you had a wish list, what would it be?
um
Of like moments you want to see, things you want to happen. Because we've seen the Ventress episode. I don't know if she'll be back, but if you could just make a wish list of like 4 or 5 items that you want to see happen in the next few episodes, what would they be?
I'm just really excited for them to finally find Tantus and storm it. And, we'll see how much of a shit show it is getting people out. I'm also really curious to see what side Emery Carr ends up on. Because she seems very conflicted, and I'm curious to see if she's gonna switch sides. Yeah, I don't know. What do you want?
So I want Project Necromancy or Necromancer to actually happen because I really want to see what it is. Like I want them to succeed. I want them to do whatever they have to do. Because I'm presuming that however it ends, Omega's not actually going to die from it. But I do want it to succeed because I want to see whatever it was. And I do want to start seeing there be consequences for the Bad Batch's actions. Like, I know everyone's very on board, and I know you've kind of been on board with Tech making some kind of return. If that happens, I'm okay with that, but I need there to be consequences, and I know, you don't like this, but like, I need them to start like actually dying for real because they've got to find a way to wrap the show up. And I don't think you can have the show end with all of them alive. And I know you don't like that. I know it hurts you to hear that, but the reality is, I think if to sell me, like even Rebels, and this hurt me infinitely. I know it made you very, very frustrated with Rebels, but Rebels killed people, and especially Kanan. And they had stakes. The stakes haven't been built up in the same way with the show. Like Thrawn was stakes that we had never seen in Star Wars. Like that was intense, right? And it felt like their backs were against the wall. Here, it's weird because it doesn't feel like their backs are against the wall ever. And I do need them to start like feeling the consequences of their actions. But I mean, other than that, I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going. The only thing I do know is I can't remember both episode titles off the top of my head, but one of the episodes is titled Identity Crisis, which has me thinking that Omega is going to have an identity crisis because, she in her mind thinks that she's not force sensitive. So then what do they want?
Next episode is Identity Crisis.
Yes.
Next one's Identity Crisis, yeah.
So I think that Omega is going to really struggle with still not knowing why the Empire is after her. Because she doesn't know. Ventress lied. Or at least,
So next week we have a 2-episode week.
Yes.
Do you know what the second episode's called?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Point of No Return.
Oh boy. I think she's gonna, I think she's gonna she's going to give herself up and get kidnapped again on purpose.
I think you're right about that. And can I tell you what the next episode, like, I'm gonna tell you what episode 12 is called?
What's it called?
Juggernaut. Juggernaut.
Oh,
Yeah. And I think that is going to be, I think there's going to be a big fight in that one. I think because 13 is into the breach. Episode 13 is into the breach, which means I think they're going to go try to rescue her after, you're right, she gets captured at some point in over those 3 episodes. Then 14 is Flash Strike, and 15 is the cavalry has arrived, which is going to be the big epic finale.
yeah.
So I think Into the Breach, Flash Strike, and the cavalry has arrived are all going to be variations of them going in to the Empire. I think Omega has to get captured for this to work because the cavalry obviously would be Rex and them, right? That's what we believe the cavalry is in any context. And coming in to rescue everyone. I think Into the Breach and Flash Strike will definitely be about the Bad Batch to either in groups or altogether trying to rescue Omega. And I think between the Identity Crisis, Point of No Return, and Juggernaut, I think Omega has to get captured.
Yeah.
Now,
I agree.
my last question for you is: do you think there's any chance that Crosshair turns bad again?
That Crosshair turns bad again?
Yeah.
No. I don't feel that way. Just with how, I don't know, how intentionally, like, we've seen his arc, it wouldn't make sense to me.
Okay. So you don't think he turns bad again?
No.
Do you think that any of these main characters they're able to turn any of the main characters bad?
I mean, they'd have to capture them.
So you don't think they could get any of them to turn on the other ones? Like on the planet, like without the Empire being involved directly?
I don't know.
Because I feel like I feel like the way these episodes are even titled makes me feel like there has to be some like massive incident, and I don't know if you could just have the Empire show up at the beginning of next episode and expect us to all just go along with it. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like they have to give us like, I don't know. There's something that doesn't say. I think there's gonna be something crazy that happens. I don't know what it is though, and that's the problem. I'm annoyed because I like to know. I like to be able to predict the future, and I can't do it right now. So I'm a little bit frustrated about that, but hopefully. So next week, it's not going to be on Wednesday. I believe it's going to be on Friday. Right?
Friday.
Yeah. So we're going to do a later thing. It's 2 episodes. So it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And then the week after that, I know that other weeks will be Wednesdays again, as normal, I think.
Yeah.
Perfect. It was great seeing you again.
Great
talking Star Wars. Thank you for watching or listening afterwards. And we will next week on Friday for the next 2 episodes, which hopefully nothing crazy happens. Because if you watch those and something crazy happens, you're definitely going to want to talk about it. I know you'll definitely tweet about it. So
yeah, I'll write down my things so that I remember what to talk about.
I'll probably watch the episode. I mean, I don't know. I like watching because like normally I'll watch it like a few hours before we start, or sometimes even the hour before we start, because I like to have it fresh in my mind when we talk about it. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to wait till Friday to watch it though, so I might have to I don't know. I might watch it again. Maybe I'll watch it twice.
Yeah, luckily they're short enough that you could watch them again, and it 20 something minutes. So
yeah, it's like 40 minutes total for the whole for both episodes, so it'll be fine. But yeah, it was great. Is there anything else Star Wars that's gone on? Oh yeah, there was one thing. So the guy who plays Qui-Gon Jinn said he's not playing him again in live action. He's too old now.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always wanted, that's the one thing from the prequels I wanted to see kind of come back is Qui-Gon, because he's been awesome and he was very underused. I was really hoping to give him a show, but now that Liam Neeson's saying nope, not doing it again, I'm kind of annoyed and disappointed. I don't know. What do you think?
That's sad. I really liked his character, and we don't see enough of him in the Phantom Menace, and that's the only really time we see him in the films and stuff until he makes cameos. But I really enjoyed getting to know more of his character in Master and Apprentice, which is a book by Claudia Gray. It's great.
Yeah, it's great.
And I just want more of his character, and I love to learn more about, you know, him and Obi-Wan's relationship when he was a Padawan, and like we don't get nearly enough of that.
Okay, this is the other thing I want to ask you about, and I know we're kind of later than we normally are for one episode, but I saw this on Twitter, and it was interesting because I think they're right, and I think this show has been very the discourse around the show has been hurt tremendously, and I think it's partially because of the way that Disney's done the screeners for the critics. So what I mean by this is, we know typically unfortunately the way it works is, critics kind of, shape narratives around stuff, TV, movies, whatever, right? I think they've done a bad job talking about the show. And what I mean by that is I think the discussion around the show, especially for the first bunch of episodes of the season, has been non-existent. And it's weird because I remember with Rebels, right? And obviously the new season of the Clone Wars. The talk always was so there's so much discussion after each episode. I don't think that's happened with the show, and I think quality wise, I don't think this is worse than those shows. Again, I think we both agree that this is a very good show. I don't know if it's do you feel like it's even being discussed enough? It should be like how Clone Wars and Rebels was discussed.
I mean, it's hard for me to compare because I wasn't around during the Clone Wars and Rebels era, so I don't know what things look like then. And I'm also very biased because I'm surrounded by circles who do talk about it. And I follow the show's creators and they talk about it. But in terms of mainstream media, it has been very quiet, which is interesting because it's Star Wars, but also I don't know. I just feel like they don't do their animated shows enough.
Well, but it's weird because again, and the thing I remember the most is the new season of Clone Wars, right? But it was talked about so much, and it was. I mean, I remember, and again, Rebels kind of was weird because I wasn't really on the internet that much at that point. But it was still talked about. It was looked at as this great show. It was not looked at as good as the Clone Wars. I think it's kind of grown since Ahsoka, but it was talked about so much, and I think it's weird because again, it feels like that isn't the case with this. I remember. The Clone Wars, that was when the new season came out, that was the thing everyone was talking about every time a new episode came out, right? The return of Maul, the return of Ahsoka, right? It was, and I don't understand it. I feel like it's so unfortunate because there has been no push by the general media to talk about the show. And I think it's kind of because it comes out at a weird time. It's not really, it's not it. I think Clone Wars, I believe, came out either in early fall or the summer. Again, I might be completely wrong on that, but I think off the top of my head, I think that was the case. And I think it just drove more discussion. Is it weird because these characters are so good, and I think they should be talked about more. There should be more conversation, and I feel like the show is kind of being short. And I don't know what the ratings are for the show. I don't know if they've released them yet. They might have. They might not have. But I don't think the show is doing nearly as well as the other shows are, and I think it's partially because people aren't being driven to it. Even people who are fans of the Clone Wars or fans of Rebels, right, haven't watched the show as much or haven't been as invested, which again is weird, and I don't understand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. And also, when I started watching all of Star Wars for the first time, I had no idea what the Bad Batch was until I started watching it. I hadn't heard a thing about any of these characters. And who would have thought, now I am obsessed with all of them. But, I hadn't heard a peep. And I had heard a peep about, Rebels and Ezra and Sabine and all of those people. But, these characters were completely new to me because I had not heard anything.
The Bad Batch didn't actually exist until the last season of Clone Wars, right? The new season of Clone Wars, which came out I think after the last season of Rebels. I think that's when it came out. So, it kind of makes sense to some extent. It was because I don't know if you know this, but Rebels up until the last season, all of Rebels and all of the Clone Wars up until that revival season, that was all done on. That was still all cable. That was Disney XD. Rebels was Disney XD. I remember watching that when it would air, and I think. And my problem with streaming generally is this: is you lose some discussion when things don't air live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember Rebels would air live, and I would watch it when it aired live. I mean,
Mhm.
PVR it too, just in case. But like, I would always try to watch it when it aired live. I feel like the best shows, and I think the thing that would have helped the Bad Batch so much, because Clone Wars had a brand, it had a fan base. I think Rebels would have failed if it started on a streaming service like Disney Plus and it came out at like midnight or 3 a.m., whatever
Mhm.
they do, right?
Mhm.
I think if it aired, or even better, if they dropped it at like 6 p.m. or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't have this weird, like, I just think for animated shows, it doesn't work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. I just think
Like,
the 3 a.m. release time is really dumb in general, and it's just not working for like anything. Like, why are we
okay,
doing this?
well, and I think the other part of it, because it's like 12 a.m. West Coast, which is 3 a.m. us, right? So it's like
Mhm.
if it, because like theoretically, if it came out at 6 o'clock, and let's say at night on a Friday, then we would probably be doing this on Friday at 7, right? Or
Yeah.
Friday at 6:30, right? Like
Yeah.
that's when we do. Everyone would be talking about it when Friday at 6:30 or Friday at 7. No to
Mhm.
talk, but now people kind of just like, you can talk about it. Sometimes Disney Plus makes it even hard to find the new episode, right? Like whatever, it's not all over their front page of the app the second you
Mhm.
turn it, you open it, right? Like I don't know. I feel like there was something about cable shows in general, and I don't know if the numbers bear this out, but I think I don't think there's any value especially if it's not a binge show
Mhm.
where I don't think there's any value to not like to doing it this weird midnight 3 a.m. release. Right?
No. Yeah, I agree.
Like if
Yeah.
it's binge, I understand because there are people, binge it, you're never gonna get everyone watching at the same time anyways. But with this show where it's 1 or 2 20-minute episodes, not even like a 40-minute episode, literally the 2 episodes are 40 minutes, right? Like there's no reason they can't do this at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? Just drop it at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Everyone will watch it at the same time. Everyone will talk about it at the same time. And then people who are doing nothing will then hear about the conversation. Because conversation, when it's happening at the same time, especially online, is so much better, right? People then care. And I think, like, I don't know. I find it very, because like I know you for the first episode stayed up until 3 a.m.,
Yeah.
right? To watch it. I don't know if you did.
I did last night too, and that was accidental. I did not mean to do that until I was like, oh, it's 2 a.m., so I might as well anyways.
Well,
But only
that's
the ride or die people do that. Like, not normal people don't do
But
that.
even like you've been like you love this show and you love
Yeah.
this show probably more than I do, and I love this show too. But like you didn't stay up till 3 a.m. to watch all of this at once. Like you watched it the first episode and then this episode accidentally, and I think kind of in hindsight probably made sense that you would because this was Ventress's return episode.
Yeah,
and I think
I can feel it.
if you knew that, you would have if you knew that for sure, you definitely would have stayed up. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But like I think you're not doing it. Like I mean I don't do that either. Like and I think that's the problem, right? Is like we're not doing that, and so do we think that normal people even turn it on? It's like it's dropping on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's a
Who
really
show
odd
drops on a
time.
Wednesday?
I don't know.
Like it's so weird. And again, Clone Wars did it, and it was fine because Clone Wars is massive, right?
Yeah.
Like Clone Wars is so big already. Bad Batch was not big. You have to make it big, and I think Rebels all aired. Well, I know Rebels all aired on Disney XD, right? Yeah. It was all like it air on a time slot, right? And so I think there's a difference, and I think it's kind of hurt the conversation around the Bad Batch. Clone Wars, because Clone Wars gained a lot of popularity after it finished, right?
Yeah.
Like Clone Wars was canceled because it wasn't popular enough, and then I think they did I don't remember how they canceled. I think they canceled it twice, and they revived it both times. Obviously Disney did the most recent revival, but like that was a brand that built up a lot of mostly because of afterwards. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, that was kind of making me mad because I'm like, well, yeah, why don't we just have it at 6 o'clock, man? It'd be so much easier.
I agree.
But anyways, here we are. So that's enough of me ranting about Star Wars not being, being done wrong. Like the release of it, I mean. Anyways, see you next week. Thank you all for watching. Bye.
Bye.
And we're out.